Well, hi there, Jerry Bleecker here. What we want to do here is to introduce you to one aspect of our resources. I'll just go to it now, which is a multi-class activity focused on grades 8 through 9, and it's entitled Introducing Visual Programming Using Twine. Now, Twine is a way to tell stories in a non-linear way. So we've got a tool for you to do sort of choose your own adventure stories, but to throw in a little bit of visual programming and decision making. Now, if you think back and remember choose your own adventure stories, for example, when I was young, these were fabulous. Super fun. I remember Deadwood City, Space and Beyond, The Haunted House. The really neat thing about nonlinear storytelling was, of course, to give the author not the author, but rather the reader, the choice of the path that they wanted to take. And this is a very rewarding way to author stories. And we've captured the essence of these decisions in a way that allows children to do storytelling, but to incorporate some computational thinking. So what we have for you here, a couple of things. We've outlined two sample resources, one here for English and one that I authored for science, which was a Magic School Bus sort of parody. The Magic School Bus falls under the weather. I'll show you that soon enough. When we just visit the goals that have been defined, clicking this link here takes you to the primary documentation, and it would be the same for the science example. So the idea is to incorporate logic, so deciding what you want to do. Do you want to do this, or do you want to do this? And that leads us into our choose your own adventure stories. Now, approaching storytelling in this way is very effective at achieving core curricular competencies simultaneously, engaging with others, sharing and developing ideas. Not only that, more than one student could be involved in the authoring here. As far as content, in computational thinking, by choosing a path, students will have the ability to use simple decision paths or approaches. Now, we call those algorithms to display their thinking, and they're going to represent their data through the stories that they actually create. So our list of activities and materials are here. I don't want to spend too much time. You can access this quite easily. I would like to take you at this point to the Twine site and show you what you'd need. The great news here is that you don't have to necessarily download any software. You're certainly welcome to. It's available in Windows format. It's available in OS X format. But really what students need are just their ideas, and in this case, we can put them in front of a web browser and they can make their choose your own adventure stories with Twine just through the web browser. So there's some details about preparation and setup. We have some self-assessment sheets here where students can talk about sort of their expectations and then their reflections afterwards. A sense of the time that's required. Again, this is just something to peruse through yourself. It's wonderful creative storytelling, prefacing, and then reflection. And the amazing thing would be if you worked in partners. That would be awesome. And here's the share your discoveries portion. So I'll let you peruse through this at greater length at your own time. Again, just to reinforce the narrative, on our resource page, it's this link right here. Using Twine to create your own adventure stories. So the curricular competencies and the core competencies achieved are the same, regardless of the English versus science example here. So, what is Twine? Well, if you go to twinery.org, again, that link is available. If you click this, we've put that link right here. I'll zoom in a little bit. Twinery.org. Now, going to twinery.org brings you here. And this is just a bit of a poster board. Twineries, or Twine rather, is an open source tool for telling interactive stories. Now, it's available for Windows, it's available for OS X, it's available for Linux. It's available in a lot of respects. I'll show you right now what it looks like on my computer, but it looks the same on Windows. I have Twine open right here. And when you start a new story, it puts it in your collection. I really want to point out this is not online. This downloaded version is on the computer. When you're done and finished your story, you can publish your story to a simple HTML file, which is a web page. And then you can put that web page wherever you would so choose. Students that are doing choose your own adventure storytelling through the web browser, they wouldn't be doing this within this application, is what I'm saying. So, looking at it, it's a fairly simple interface. Starts pretty easy. And you can play a story, you can test the one you've created. As I said, published it, rename it, etc. But if you go to start, you would just start by adding a story. So I'll just call this a sample story by me. And there you go. Now when Twine begins, what you have is just a simple card right here. And the card itself is literally like a recipe card. If you want to do something with it, you need to double click to go inside and to make some edits. Neat thing about Twine, and it's the same in the web browser, it says double click this passage to edit. Now I'll just undo that. It says double click to edit, but if you hit delete or backspace, you will see all of Twine's abilities. This is sort of like a manual for how to do things in Twine and how to set up links, how to do bold and italic and things like that. I'm going to keep this really simple and show you the example that I created just as an entry-level example, but think of this as sort of your cheat sheet, if you will. What's really important in Twine is getting the title at the top right. Every card's title is what you link to. So I'll just say that it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And that is the title of the card. But the actual editing, the body of what's to be said, is down here. You can add what are called tags. I think in the early going that's not super important, but those are like keywords. Those are things that you could go to, but I'll just click off that. And if we zoom in now, you see this little rocket ship. What that means is this is the starting card. Down here, you could trash this card. You can edit the card. That takes you back in. You can test the card. This is debugging, just to see how the story looks. So this would be, zooming out, sample story by me. And there's not much to see here. It's a dark card because I haven't placed anything on it. So it's just empty. So whenever you go to add a new card, you could add new cards like this. So I'll leave this example open. It just calls each one a passage, but I've arranged it in a choose your own adventure style fashion so you can see where it could go to. So I'm going to close this Twine. Let's see here. All right. There we go, and head home. So you could see in this that I have two files open. The Magic School Bus Falls Under the Weather is just sort of a neat little science example. I'll double click that now. And it looks fairly fancy. What's being done here in this Twine is that I just sort of re-engineered a Magic School Bus episode about Miss Frizzle being sick, and with the arrows you can see the paths the students can take. For example, you can take this path first, or alternatively here, and it becomes interesting once you start to allow people to have access to either new cards, or maybe it's a dead end and you have to go all the way back to the beginning, a bit like Snakes and Ladders. The students will have great fun with this. Let's take a look. Okay, so in the beginning, actually, let's just play this. Okay, so this is called The Magic School Bus Falls Under the Weather. And I've embedded a little sound for fun, so I'm just going to turn that off now. Okay, so my goal was to put a picture in each card and to assume the role of the different characters and to have that usual Magic School Bus type discussion. And it's neat. Where the real meat and potatoes of this example kick in is when you get to the end of the dialogue, of the action, and the students have to decide what they want to do next. And in this case, Miss Frizzle's ill, she's not at school, and they don't know what to do because she's not showing up. So, yeah, I put in two choices. Do you want to wait 10 more minutes, or do you want to simply go find the Frizz? If you wait 10 more minutes, this takes you to another card where the students just wait and they have to make another decision whether or not to go see the principal or to heck with it, go off to find Miss Frizzle. So if they decide to go and find Miss Frizzle, that takes them to another card that's being written. And each of these cards has two choices. But no one said there had to be only two choices. I'm just following typical sort of choose your own adventure history by providing two choices at the end of a passage. The kids have to figure out whether or not Miss Frizzle, once they find her, is suffering from a virus or a bacterial infection. This lesson is designed to teach about the immune system in Science 8. Having students produce their own story like this, or another one about a fantastic voyage through the immune system, is really neat because of the possibilities the students could go through. Right? Should they run away from a virus? Is it a virus? Are we looking at bacteria? Who knows? And in this case, Miss Frizzle has the flu. So they madly careen off to see what they can do. It's very neat using Twine because you can also put in a very simple way, videos from YouTube. So I'll show you a few of these without getting too in-depth on it. If you ever wanted to do something like this and you wanted a bit more help, you could always feel free to contact myself or Cliff. Just makes the storytelling a bit more visual. We've added some web elements, not just text, but that's an embedded YouTube video. And of course, an embedded picture from the web. And I have one more video here. Okay, so how is this all done? Let's go back. The starting card, which it was the original card, but it has this little rocket ship here. I'm going to double click it. Has a few web elements. So the card's title and its identity is exactly this. It started as just another day at Walkerville Elementary. This image right here is directly from the web. So I found a picture online. So I'll just go to a web browser. I'll go to Google, Walkerville Elementary. Here we go. And I'll just go to Google's images. So this was the picture that I found from the Magic School Bus wiki. So I'm going to go the full distance, go into the image. And if you right click, I'm not going to save the image. I'm going to copy its address on the internet. So when you copy something's address on the internet, let's just minimize this. There we go. I have to call up Twine again. There you are. So when you go to put that on the internet, I'll just go down here and zoom it a little bit so you can see. Using a simple web code called image, I said that I have an image and its source is equal to, I'll do a single quote, then I'll paste, and then I'll single quote again. And I'll put in an extra space there. Don't worry about these bullets. That's not important. But what you have here is just using some simple web codes, and they're outlined in our resources. The image tag allows you to put in an image, and its source was quoted from the internet. So it's like I'm quoting exactly where on the internet that is. So it's showing that picture from the internet, and that's its source. Above here, the only thing I did was change a little bit of its width and height. So that's kind of neat. That's how you can place images onto your files without getting too far into the woods. The Magic School Bus Falls Under the Weather as a title could have been done in bold. I could have done this, but I chose not to. Just like newspapers have headlines, I chose headline 4, which is already bolded and it's pretty big text. So I went with headline 4 format for the title. Now, in this case, I think it's easiest with the students to just have them type their text. Just go ahead, type, say what you want to say. When a passage of text is done, if you would like to have one line of blank space after what they've said and not some giant run-on sentence, you could put your break in, and this is called a tag. And again, it uses those little angle brackets there. But what a break does is when you get to the end of the line, it pushes the text down one line and puts in one blank line of space. If you don't do that, the whole thing runs together and it looks a little goofy. Now, I know you're probably wondering, well, why is this not like Microsoft Word? Well, Twine is a little bit more of just a really simple editor. And by putting this in, it kind of helps out. Another way of doing a break is like that. A little bit more modern, but BR in between these less than and greater than signs works perfectly as a tag. So in this example, all that's really being done is the Magic School Bus talking has happened. And I've asked at the end, since Miss Frizzle hasn't shown up, what do you want to do? And there's two possibilities. Now, this might look a little bit fancy, but it just means that I've made a list. And in your web codes for this activity, this is called an unordered list. So when you make an unordered list, we'll just pop out for 1 second. What an unordered list does, unordered lists simply give you, let's mute that. They simply give you the bullet format. If you did an ordered list, oh well, you would get number 1 and number 2, but that's not what's at issue here. Unordered lists are kind of nice. If you don't want to use lists, just make sure that you put a break at the end of each line. That's just fine. But in this case, what is kind of important, and I'm going to make this a little bit easier to read, is a choice had to be made. So when you decide you want to go to another card, the format looks a little bit interesting, but once you see it, you'll get to know it quite well. And my example is online. You have 2 square brackets at the beginning and at the end. So the choice in words is to wait 10 more minutes. And then it's pointing to something right here. It's got this, there we go. It's got this arrow. Now again, when you go to use Twine, this is on that cheat sheet, first page that I'll show you. But when you say, let's wait 10 more minutes, this is the card you want to go to. This is the title of that next card. As soon as you write its exact title in without getting it wrong, the text here, let's wait 10 more minutes, points in that direction. So it jumps that way. Similarly below, here we go, same idea. If the students decided that they didn't want to wait and they wanted to go find Miss Frizzle, okay, inside of the double brackets on the inside, the text, which is the choice, don't wait and go to find the Frizz, points at, there's your format there, points at the name of that card, which I'd written everything on, which is off to Miss Frizzle's house. Okay, so what does that look like? Let's go back here. So let's wait 10 more minutes. The card, that's why this is really important. This is the name of the card, and you could see the image here, and again, I put in 2 choices at the end. Same format with the text choice pointing at the name of the card. And that's what makes this kind of magical, where when you choose this, it goes off to that next possibility. And I'll tell you the simplest truth on this, once students do 1 or 2 cards, they'll simply know what to do. And this is only the sort of the bare bones of Twine. There's a lot more you could do. Twine could not just make decisions, but later on in advanced Twine, you can use if statements, which are sort of like decision structures. If something here happens, then this is the result. But in the beginning, it's simplest, I think, for the first couple of assignments, to just give them a choice and like a hyperlink or a clickable link to just follow it. Okay, so when you look at all the choices, now it's kind of neat. The students, in this case, if they follow this path, they wait 10 more minutes, and they see the principal, and he tells them to go back to the room. And if they don't go to find Miss Frizzle, they've hit the end of the line, and this takes them back to the beginning of the story. So, just to reinforce the narrative about how this was designed, I kind of really didn't give them a choice. Yes or no takes them back to the first card. So there's your text. Would you care to start over? Yes, with the arrow inside these double brackets. And the exact name of the card, it was just another day at Walkerville Elementary, is right there. So kind of neat. Had a little bit of fun with this. I like authoring. It's always fun to create something new. But this story I've published, so let me just pop out of full screen mode. This story I've published onto the ADST site. So the good news is you can take it out for a spin, because the Magic School Bus Falls Under the Weather is right here. And oh good, I've muted it. And I'm just running this off my school site, but you can take a look at it and follow the story. There's that space that those BRs or breaks made that make it look pretty good. If you find any glaring grammatical errors, let me know. I wouldn't say I did it quickly, but I was authoring pretty fast, pretty rapid pace for me. As the story goes on and on, you will get to these sections where we've embedded these things. And that actually warrants discussion, because I said I would talk about that. So, just briefly back to Twine. Bear with me here. Now, I believe which card I was on. I believe it's this one here. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. Okay. It's a virus. So I'm going to double click in that card and zoom in a little bit. So one of those videos where the kids are looking out the window, and what I wanted to do was add something to the story that was kind of exciting, and I just kind of went to YouTube and found this video. So in this case, it's a video of a virus. And not to speak a lot of webbies or web codes to you, but this is an internal frame. They call them iframes. Good news is you don't have to do anything for this. Google will simply do it for you. So I'll go to YouTube, and I'll look up something about, let's say something you wanted, a video about a virus. Okay, so let's say that you fell in love with this animation on what's a virus. Okay, or, oh, actually one of my favorites, flu attack, how a virus invades the body. Okay, so looks good. I'm just going to pause this. On any YouTube video, when you look below, you'll see that there's options, add to, share, and more. When you decide that you want to embed a YouTube video, if you click on share, you will see that this is the link you could send to somebody through mail or what have you. What's really interesting is when you click on embed. Now that might be a little subtle because that text is small, but this text highlighted in blue is everything that you need. This is the width and the height of the video in the middle of your page. So if you're feeling brave, you can play around with the numbers, but generally I say just go with what it is. If you copy that text, and that's all you have to do, just copy that text, it will embed in your work. So for example here, let's put in a little space above and below so you can see this. Zoom in. So now if I literally said paste, there it is. So it's a frame that's 560 wide, 315 high, so it's a little bit rectangular. And this is the YouTube video source. You don't have to mess with this at all. I do recommend putting in a break like this at the end, just so that there's a bit of space after the video, otherwise your text bumps up against the video. But that's all that you have to do, and you now have added a video into your story. And that's pretty exciting. It's embedded right into your storytelling. Some of your students might ask about putting links. I'm just going to remove that now. Your students might ask about putting links into their Twine stories. And while I think it's an interesting idea, oops, that's not Twine. While it's an interesting idea, what actually happens is you don't have back and forward arrows here. So if you opened up a web page, it would be hard to get back to your story. So I like adding embedded content, for example, like the videos, and allowing the Twine to tell its story because you stay inside the book. And that's just better for the kids, just much more fun. Okay, so I'll close that up. So testing that out, I'll just hit the little testaroonie there. Oops, it's not where I want it to be. There we go. I'll hit debug on the slide. So as we go down, 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 there it is. And it's quite neat. So you've got the video. This is what the kids were looking at when they looked outside the window. They saw this. So a little bit of creative storytelling, right? You could just put pictures here, right? And in the sense of a choose your own adventure book. I just thought text could be a little bit more fun, and I chose something without a lot of sound, which was kind of fun. But that was the idea. And there's that, how flu virus invades the body. So this is what the kids are seeing when they look out the window from the Magic School Bus. So I took a story and gave it a superpower by putting in a YouTube video. It was just fun. So when the Magic School Bus, kind of when you get to the end of this example, this is it. There's no additional path to go to. The good news with Twine, though, is it's not limited. This isn't the end of the road. There's different ways to visualize it. Oops. You can visualize little tiny cards by clicking down here, and bigger cards and really big cards. All you have to do is say add passage. And here you go. That's the next possibility in your story. You might find that your students will really like this. I think it's all about the creativity, the ability to weave a story, and placing the story wherever you want. When you are done, I'll just delete that. When you are done, this is all just a big web page. So by clicking here, you can say, what do you want to do with it? Just to keep it simple, Twine doesn't host your story. This is just a thing to make your story. Simple web codes. If you publish to a file, and I'll go to my desktop and I'll make a new folder. Let's call it MSB Fun. I'll create that folder. And Magic School Bus Falls Under the Weather is what I would want it to be called on the desktop, and I'll hit save. Okay, so it's there. So what do we got? Well, for example, here it is. Your file that you want is right there. So when you are done with your HTML file, the students have tested it in Twine, but if you want to publish it, you can put it on the web folder at the school. For example, each teacher has a folder called Public HTML, and you can put it on there and host it if you would like. A place for students to place their stories. Little consideration about them pasting their stories there. Just a little bit of anonymity. They really shouldn't use their full names in context, right? This would just be their stories, but you have their story right there. So you could make a class collection of stories. If you haven't published to your public HTML folder, you can get a hold of myself or Cliff. Odds are you should have a public HTML folder for things like marks. If you don't, well, we'll make that happen. Not a problem. Okay. So I'm just going to go back. I have to get back to my Chrome browser. There we go. So the idea, coming back to the applied design skills and technology, was to model or demonstrate how Twine could be used. So one thing I'll say is make sure that going through this link here is something that you begin with and something you go back to, because all of the codes and hints and things to work with Twine are here, plus the curricular competencies and how this lesson meets those objectives. But as I say, myself or Cliff are available anytime. So thanks for listening. That was my introduction to using Twine in a specific instance with the Magic School Bus Falls Under the Weather. Have a good one.